Hello and welcome to our latest and greatest edition of Better Together Arizona. I am your host, Angela Hughey. I am so excited to have my dear friend Chad Wolver with us. We like to say not all heroes wear capes. Some are in finance. Chad, you're the Chief Financial Officer of Adobe Population Health, and you were a 2024 Spotlight Local Hero. We were just so absolutely honored to tell your story last year. And I'm really excited to have you so that our viewers and listeners get a deeper understanding about how awesome you are and get to really hear from you. So to get us started off, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh, wow. Yeah, big task.
Yeah.
My name is Chad Wolver. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Adobe Population Health. We are an Arizona-based, tech-enabled population health management company. And what we do is we provide rural healthcare and go into people's homes and figure out what exactly is going on in their lives that are barriers to accessing care. And we address those issues so that they can get the care that they deserve. So very simple, boiled down version of what we do. I've been there since 2021, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I've been in finance for the better part of now going on 15 years, which is great. But yeah, very excited to be here. I understand you guys recently were honored as one of the top 50 businesses to watch by Arizona Phoenix Mag, which is very cool.
Very cool.
Very exciting.
I know. I mean, who knew? I think it's about the passion of what you do, right?
Yeah.
And for you, it's healthy populations. And for us, it's treating all people fairly and equally. And so I think that passion adds to, the driving forces, which makes both of us really healthy organizationally, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
super cool. So I love the story about how you first got involved with us. And I'd love it if you would share with our listeners, viewers, how you first got involved with One Community and with our quality work.
Yeah, we were talking about this maybe a couple months ago, and we were
It's been a long
trying
time.
to figure out where it exactly became official, because when it just feels like we've always been working together, and I've always known about One Community, and the memory came back to the very first event I ever attended was what was it called? It was the
State of LGBTQ Arizona report, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was the breakfast in Scottsdale, and somebody who I met through the Greater Phoenix Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce invited me to the event, and I was like, what is this? I'm so excited. I would love to see how the LGBTQ community impacts the economics of Arizona.
Yeah.
So I was very, very excited to go to that brunch, and it's just been a whirlwind of synchronicity since then. So.
Well, I tell people be careful what you ask for, because once you're in our orbit with me in particular, I'm sticky, right? And I'm once you're in your orbit, we're like, nope, we're in this together, which I'm so grateful for. And you joined our Multicultural Advisory Board several years ago too, and we're just so grateful for the leadership that you had. And then, when you joined Adobe Population Health, it was important for you that Adobe become a One Community member. Talk about why that was important for you.
It's funny because every organization I've been at since that breakfast, I was reflecting on that this morning, it's always been important for the organization I'm working with, to sign the pledge. And most of the organization, one or two of the organizations I've worked with had signed the pledge previous to me being a part of it. But the ones that hadn't, I made a very big effort every single time to sign the pledge, whether it was an international organization or a local organization. And I wanted to do the same thing at Adobe, because really visibility is what's most important. And showing the community, Arizona, your employees, for us, the members we serve, that we are committed to inclusivity and advancing the mission of equality for all. That's what the pledge is about. And I'm very excited that we signed a couple last year. We should have signed earlier, but I think just paperwork got crossed.
No, we're good. Well, and we have, I was just telling you before we started this interview that we have brand new open for business to everyone signs. And I can't wait to schedule a photo shoot with you and your team at Adobe, because you're the largest privately held LGBTQ plus organization in the state, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we are LGBTQ owned, LGBTQ led. we have a large LGBTQ population of employees. A lot of our members, we work in rural areas in right now 8 states, and like we serve members who are LGBTQ. So yeah, it's very important to us that we are accepting and open and inclusive to all. Yeah.
Well, and I think we've talked about this in the past too, like the burden and responsibility that comes with being, you are serving diverse populations,
Hmm.
including the LGBTQ plus community. You are, owned and run by members of our LGBTQ plus community. Like you're in a really unique spot because it really does give you a voice. And I would say that with it comes responsibility. And in some
Absolutely.
cases, it feels, like you're trying to negotiate your way through this,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And you kind of look at where we're at now. And we're in these like really, really turbulent times, right? You have an administration that has been in place remarkably less than 100 days,
Ugh,
right?
that's tough.
So that's tough. And, in the first, I think, week or so, there were 5 or 6 executive orders that were really meant to harm and just limit public life for transgender Americans, right? There's a big push against diversity, equity, and inclusion. LGBTQ plus organizations and organizations and businesses that serve consumers and populations that are members of diverse communities, I think are really kind of back on their heels right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I think it's also because people see some of the actions that have been taken against specific organizations
Yeah.
or firms. And yeah, it has put people and organizations into a defensive posture. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like my organization, my role, I think I talked about this at the business summit. Like at the end of the day, I have to make sure that 400 people in our organization go home with a paycheck. And it's difficult sometimes to kind of balance like what is the right thing to do and what needs to be done, right? And I think that it's right. We're kind of at a crossroads right now, and it's kind of I don't know what the phrase is, but you need to make a decision and make the right decision that is in the best long-term interest of our country, our community, our employees, and that's not always the easy decision.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. I do think that, to your point, individuals and businesses and organizations are getting to that why in the road. I
Yeah.
think for me, the question is like how much suffering are you willing to take
Yeah.
on the sidelines,
Yeah.
right? And it just seems like I think we were talking about this earlier. I feel like we're in an acid rainstorm, and no one can avoid really the punishment that
Mhm.
is coming
Yeah.
from this new administration,
Yeah.
regardless of who you are, how you identify, who you
Mhm.
love. We all kind of feel like we're in the crosshairs.
Yeah.
I do think that should we stand beside one another and find our courage, the opportunity to come through this stronger and better is that's the why in the road,
Yeah.
right? And
Absolutely.
that's where we're leaning, which is why like we're gonna lift up the pledge in an even bigger way.
Mhm.
Like I think again in these first less than 100 days, it's been like, whoa, we're back on our heels. How do we lean into this? We've chosen to, I think, really be educational and have these thoughtful conversations on the podcast. And we're leaning in big time. We're continuing with our, the work we do around equality and fairness, and having, conversations, a cup of coffee at a time. And I feel like the tide is turning, right? That there is some momentum where people are realizing that actually the most dangerous place to be is on the sidelines right now.
Yeah. I think again, like visibility and your voice is so important. And I've talked about this before, like even one person can make a difference. And
Absolutely.
like that's why I'm here, right? Like I think it's important to speak out, and our organization thinks it's important to like be here for this conversation because it matters. And it's going to impact a lot of like the decisions of the current administration are going to impact a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So, like, you have been a leader in Arizona's LGBTQ plus community for quite some time. Like, do you have like a personal story about like when you decided you just had to get involved? Because Chad, you are so consistent, you're passionate, You are always courageous. Like have always leaned into uncomfortable conversations and saying, we have a duty and a responsibility to show up. What, like, where was the spark?
Oh man. Yeah. So once I graduated from ASU, my undergrad, I ended up going into the Peace Corps and did Peace Corps for a while. And, Peace Corps is a very different, it skews very left amongst all of the staff. And during Peace Corps, I actually came out. So that was a big step for me in my personal journey of being a queer individual. But I finished Peace Corps, and I was fortunate enough to I was serving in South Africa, fortunate enough to stay in South Africa working for a HIV/AIDS prevention organization that a friend of mine had connected me to. But at the same time, I was also volunteering for this LGBTQ refugee organization called PASOP. You can check them out. It's a really amazing organization. They help LGBTQ refugees resettle in South Africa, and they typically deal with refugees who are coming from all over Africa, like as far north as West. That's kind of hard to say. As far north as West Africa, and the things that I I saw and heard and read about these individuals had to deal with in their lives, and how they had to journey across an entire continent when there's not, the exact same infrastructure that we have in the United States and access to resources. Like, it opens your eyes to how fortunate we are
And they had
here.
to do this because their lives were in danger
Absolutely.
because of who they are.
Yeah, prosecuted because of gender identity, sexual orientation, like just who they are, who they loved, that they even existed. And they were a lot of times there's a lot of gender-based violence, and it's like the things that happened to people were atrocious. And um, coming back to the United States after that experience, I knew that I could not take what we have for granted anymore. Like, that was just like that was I had to do something.
I'm so glad you say that because I feel sometimes like our community is not as engaged as perhaps it should be, right?
Yeah.
Like and doesn't want to be bothered with the politics of just being who we are. And I hope that we are at a moment where people actually understand that these protections are not secure,
Yeah.
right? Like we cannot take for granted the freedoms that we currently have
Yeah.
because there is an active attempt to take those freedoms from people like you and I.
Yeah. I was thinking about it this morning, and I think back to when I was like my journey of coming out, right? And I had a mentor who was in his like late 40s, early 50s, and I was in my early 20s at that time. And I asked the question of him. I was like, "Well, why should I come out? Like, why is it anybody else's business? Like, why
Mhm.
should anybody else care?" And I'm sure everybody's kind of heard this from somebody else in their lives, or maybe if they haven't, they should have. But he told me that, like, you come out so the people behind you don't have to, right?
Mhm.
And I was thinking about that, and then I think that sentiment can be more generalized and to this conversation, because the reason that we fight now is so that other people, other generations that follow, don't have to have these same
Right.
discussions. Yeah.
Well, and it's so Sherry and I got married in 2008, right? We went to
Hmm.
California, got married in San Diego, and we came home with this marriage certificate that looked the same as every other person in California's, but it had no rights or protections, right?
Yeah.
And we brought it back to Arizona, and we lived here, and we had no rights and protections, even though we were like a legally married couple. And our journey's been really interesting because then marriage equality comes in Arizona, but there still weren't federal protections, and so the question was, does this piece of paper protect us in any
Mm.
way? And then, of course, you have the Obergefell decision and the Windsor decisions, which bring marriage equality and the federal rights and protections, the 1,138 rights and protections to all same-sex couples and interracial couples too,
Mm.
right? The fact that um, these rights and protections don't feel secure right now
Yep.
is pretty remarkable, right?
Mhm.
Like we worked really collaboratively to get the Respect for Marriage Act over the line a few years ago to ensure that if there was an attempt to overturn Obergefell, that same-sex couples and interracial couples had the same, that this was codified, right? It's
Yep.
the first time a president of the United States has ever codified
Mm.
protections for LGBTQ plus
Mm.
Americans. And this is such a fascinating time for me because I feel like members of our community and diverse communities are uncomfortable, but I think that unfortunately this administration has done a pretty decent job of making people so uncomfortable
Mm.
and so afraid
Mm.
that there's a fear to get involved.
Mhm.
And right now we actually need to be more involved than we've ever been,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I definitely agree. Like, can't say it better. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We were talking before the show, like, there's an attempt to recall Councilmember Julie Spilsbury in Mesa, and
Mhm.
that intent is to roll that Mesa ordinance, right?
Mhm.
And it's remarkable to me. You have a ordinance that was passed in 2021, right? We're in 2025. 7 years of educating citizens in Mesa and elected officials in Mesa, building strong bipartisan business and faith coalitions in Mesa to get the Mesa ordinance over the line. Immediately, there's an attempt to recall the Mesa ordinance. We fight back against that. That ordinance has been in place since 2021.
Mm.
It is a remarkable ordinance. There are, no reported incidences of discrimination, and Mesa is truly welcoming and open for business to everyone. And you have a national organization that is targeting
Mm.
a council member who is conservative and LDS because she supports the LGBTQ community, because she was that fifth vote, right?
Despite the LDS Church coming in favor of it,
Coming out
right?
in favor of it, right?
Yeah.
Like when the Mason, thank you.
Yeah.
That's right. That's an important part of the story. Yeah. Like when the ordinance was under attack, the LDS Church came out. We did a co-signed letter with the church and
Mm.
other faith-based organizations and our good friends at Equality Arizona, saying this ordinance is so important and treating all people equally and fairly is the right thing to do, right? So it's remarkable
Mm.
that in 2025, there is a national organization that is trying to recall a very popular, remarkable leader in Mesa who was just reelected with 65% of the vote, by the way, so that they can gather the votes to overturn the Mesa ordinance.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, and I think apathy is like we can't be apathetic. Apathy is going to be the downfall. So we have to be out
you
there. We
can't.
have to.
Well, to your point, like if we're so afraid and I don't want to get involved, then God forbid if there's success in Mesa, that says this is the playbook, and this is how you can do it in other municipalities, not just in the great state of Arizona, but throughout our nation. And I think, we can't be standing on the sidelines. We need to have empathy, not
Mhm.
apathy, right? We need to understand and I think participate in treating all people fairly.
Yes. Yeah. I think that is like absolutely key, like participation in the process. And again, that goes back to the unity pledge,
Yeah.
right? Because you may not be able to be at every conversation or be in every debate or be at every city council meeting. You may not even live in that that municipality, but this unity pledge is a way for us to leverage the voices of a collective that say, no, this is what we stand for. We believe Arizona should be open for all, and like here is the proof of the pudding.
Yeah, and if you haven't remarkably signed the Unity Pledge, it's unitypledge.com. 3,800 businesses with a footprint in the state of Arizona have taken the pledge. Over 22,000 everyday Arizonans. We'd love to see both of those numbers double, right? Like we remind people that they vote with their wallet every day, right? That you have a choice that you can make when you're choosing like who you want to get your healthcare services from, who you want to, purchase your groceries from. And I'm not a big believer in boycotts. I'm a huge believer in, really shifting the way that you shop. That's a wonderful tagline from our dear friends at Local First, and aligning, and utilizing businesses that believe in inclusion for all people.
Yeah, I think that like as an organizations make decisions about their culture and what they do. So you really have to figure out like what values do you want to align yourself to.
Well, talk about that, right? Because inclusion is really important to Adobe. Talk about why inclusion and having an inclusive culture matters so much to you and your leadership team?
Well, I mean, as I kind of mentioned, we have like LGBTQ owners, leaders on our organization are LGBTQ. We have more than, I think we talked about 18% of the general population for is
For
it
Gen Z,
Gen
yeah. So
Z?
if you look at Gen Z, 18% identify as something other than wholly heterosexual. Let me translate that. That means a member of the LGBTQ plus
Yeah.
community.
So it's interesting because I know that we have a greater than 18% LGBTQ presence in our work. And it's not like we're going out there actively recruiting like queer
No,
individuals,
but what you're
right?
doing is you're trying to recruit the best and the brightest. And by the way, people get, it's not a one-sided decision on where you're going to work, right? Where you're going to spend a good portion of your life. You want to work for a company that's aligned with your values,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And that we had a good example of how we live our values and type of culture that we drive every day. Shortly after the election happened, we have a couple of individuals who are non-binary and they don't present, in the binary. And there was some discussion that they were worried that, if do I need to dress more conservatively? Do I need to dress more like a man or more like a woman
Mhm.
because maybe I won't be accepted,
At
and
work?
at work, yeah. And that was the kind of the conversation. And I remember we were talking about this in our executive committee meeting, and the CEO, Jamie, she goes, if anybody has a problem with how anybody dresses here, they know where the door is.
Mm.
And that is like the exact example of how we support people
But
in
that's
our
leadership.
organization. Absolutely. And that leadership translates into culture. And Jamie frequently says culture is the lifeblood of our organization. And we are responsible for ensuring that people feel safe, comfortable, welcome, they have a sense of belonging in our organization. Because at the end of the day, if they're focused on these things, right, they can't be focused on delivering the best care, improving the quality of life for people who need it the most. And that's the ultimate objective of
Well,
our
when
organization.
you're inclusive, you're creating a healthy culture, right?
Absolutely.
And so when your team members are healthy, they bring their best ideas and the best opportunities, to provide your clients with the services that you provide.
Yep.
Just makes it like it's holistic, right?
Yeah.
It just like when you do what's right and you welcome everyone and you really truly do create that sense of belonging
Yeah.
for everyone, no matter again who they are, how they identify, how they choose to express themselves
Mhm.
through the clothes that they're wearing to work
Mhm.
every day. You just have a healthier team, you have healthier outcomes, and you're in the healthcare business.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a direct correlation between mental health and like your productivity at work. Like there's been studies about it. So like we want healthy employees to have a healthy company.
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up because we just this week put in the field our state of LGBTQ plus and allied Arizonan survey, right?
Ooh.
We haven't done it's so funny because this conversation starts with our first state of LGBTQ plus Arizona survey, right? And we just put a report rather. We've just put a survey in the field, and there are questions about whether or not you feel like you can be yourself,
Mm,
in your community,
mm,
at work,
mm,
and in this great state that we love, and whether or not you believe that the community you live in is LGBTQ inclusive,
mm,
and whether or not you believe our great state
mm.
is, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I think back to when I first came back from Peace Corps, I was looking at jobs and I was thinking, because I just had come out, I was fresh out of the world. I've had these experiences with LGBTQ people from all over the place, and like I knew that when I was looking for a job, I was going to work at an organization that was open for people like me. And I remember every single interview I went to when I first came back, I was asking, like, what are you doing for LGBTQ inclusiveness? Do you have an employee resource network for LGBTQ people? And the organizations that struggle to answer those questions or couldn't give me examples,
You're like, I'm not interested in working
I
here.
didn't, yeah, I was not
That's what
interested
I
in
think
working
people don't
with.
understand, right? Like, I mean, this is a two-way street, right? If you want to attract the best and brightest, of which you are, right? So talented, being inclusive is so it's an imperative,
Yes.
right? So this whole idea that we're going to just stop being inclusive of diverse communities is really bad for the fabric of America.
Yeah.
And it's really, when you get down to the dollars and cents of it, it's just a really bad business decision.
I mean, there's been study after study that
Yeah.
shows that like diverse workforces, diverse companies outperform non-diverse or homogenous work companies.
Of course.
Like, it's just fact.
Yeah, it's absolutely just fact. And again, let's talk about the consumer piece to it too, right? So our community has $1.4 trillion worth of buying power. That's based on a census that has never asked a direct question. It doesn't include allies, right? So you can double that, right? These are folks that are making conscious decisions when they are purchasing products and services that they want to do so with companies and organizations that are aligned with their values, which goes back to why the Unity Pledge is even more important. It's remarkable to me than it has been in years past, right? Like, we want to be aligned with businesses and organizations that value everyone and are truly open for business to everyone.
Yeah.
And then to the leadership piece and like where we're going, you brought up Gen Z. Gen Z is going to have $33 trillion worth of buying power by 2030. $33 trillion worth of buying power. 18% of the generation identifies as members of the LGBTQ plus community. It's the most diverse generation to come into the workforce, right? Every generation in America's history is more diverse than a generation before. And I think that's really important that people understand that, right? Like, diverse communities and people that represent and are members of diverse communities, we're not going away. We are a part of the fabric of our great state and our nation, and that is what makes us great.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting because I think it's just human nature, right? Like, we think about ourselves.
Yep.
And you think about, okay, like, what's happening to me in this moment? But I think that if you can take a broader perspective and figure out, okay, and in my role, I have to what does our workforce need? What do the people that are not necessarily in my situation, what do they need to be successful? Because we're not going to be around forever, right?
Right.
Like, we're humans. We're going to die at some point. So
Well, we need to create legacy opportunities in a better place and pass, I'm trying to work myself out of a job every day. I'm not doing a very good job of it right now, but I'm really trying.
We'll give you some breathing room.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that we need to think about like the people who are coming behind us, the generations that are coming in our place, and figure out how do we set them up for success, because at the end of the day, that's really what we need to be doing.
Yeah. Final question. What's your dream for Arizona?
Oh man, I don't think I have a dream for Arizona. I would just love to live in a state where like everybody is treated and has the same equal protections as everybody else. And I feel like that shouldn't be a dream. I feel like that just should be the baseline, you know? But unfortunately, it's not right now. And we've talked about like why some of these things like the Equality and Fairness for All Act, why things like the Unity Pledge, having your voice heard, voting is so important, because like these actions can drive a positive result. And I'm really excited on the work One Community is doing. So thankful that you've invited me to this table today. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you, Chad.
Of course.
So grateful for all the wonderful work you do.
Thank you.